I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's a super stacked UFC card. The main event is JDM taking on Islam Makhachev. The co-main event is Valentina taking on Zhang. We've got 2 title fights and many high quality matchups on this card. Before we get into the breakdown, dust up the like button, dust up the subscribe button. Now, as for my bets last weekend, I had 6 bets. I believe I won 3 of them. So no real profit on the last event. I broke even on the right side. But I feel we're going to have a nice betting card for UFC 322. All right, my homies, let's jump straight into the breakdown of UFC 322. Let's go. First matchup on the card, we've got Susurkaev taking on Matheus Camilo. And this is really nice matchmaking already on this card. And that's how you know it's a stacked pay-per-view. When the first fight of the night is already good, that's how you know, man. This is a stacked card. Let's start the breakdown with Susurkaev, the former Russian kickboxing champion who now has 3 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC octagon. Only 3 wins from 9 fights, which isn't exactly a good record. But we know why Slava has such a questionable UFC record. It's the fact that he simply doesn't have the wrestling or grappling. It's a massive weakness in his skill set. And as I mentioned on my breakdown a couple videos ago, mixed martial arts is like 5 sports mashed into one. You need to be serviceable in the wrestling. You need to be serviceable in the grappling. And that's something Slava doesn't seem to have. He's got bad takedown defense. He's a fish out of water on the ground. Doesn't understand how to wrestle back to the feet. Doesn't understand basic jiu-jitsu technique like shrimping or regarding. He's a fish on the ground, basically. However, the kickboxing ability of Slava is some good stuff. It's some good stuff, man. The kicks are nice. The boxing's nice. He's a very dangerous fighter on the feet. It's just sometimes, or most of the time, the opponent brings him to the ground. Now, the opponent, Matheus Camilo, currently 0 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC octagon after losing against Gabe Green in his debut. Now, the first thing I want to say is this. Gabe Green looked like a welterweight in that fight. And that's because Gabe Green is a welterweight. He stepped down to lightweight and literally looked a weight class bigger than Camilo in that fight. And Camilo still got a takedown in round 1 against Gabe Green. Now, if Camilo is bringing welterweight Gabe Green to the ground in round 1, there's no doubt in my mind he can get Slava to the ground. And I also want to mention the stand-up of Camilo in that debut, the low kick. The low kick was on display nice and early. No wind-up, no telegraph on the low kick. He was firing that kick, man, and it was landing effectively. So yeah, I kind of feel that Camilo, despite losing that debut, he looked sharp. He still looked sharp. It's just the size of Gabe Green eventually got to Camilo inside the smaller octagon. So guys, who's going to win the first fight between Slava and Camilo? If Camilo follows the takedown game plan, that typically works against Slava. We've seen that game plan work on multiple occasions. In his last fight, the fight before that, he's always getting taken to the ground and dusted on the ground. But guys, I do have to mention, if the matchup was to stay standing, if the matchup was to stay on the feet, don't sleep on Slava. His ground game is awful, but the stand-up is so nice. He's a very experienced kickboxer, a former Russian kickboxing champion. On the feet, man, he is good to go. But I guess my first prediction is going to be Camilo to pick up the win, because if he takes him to the ground, which he probably will do, then you're looking at submissions, then you're looking at ground and pound, you're looking at ground control, you're looking at the Brazilian fighter following the Brazilian jiu-jitsu game plan for the win. Next matchup, we've got Baisangur Susurkaev taking on McConico. Hey, what type of sacrifice is this matchup? What type of dustoration sacrifice is this fight? Hey, why have the UFC got to do McConico like that? It's a layup win. It's a free win. It's a pure dustoration by Susurkaev. McConico would only ever win this fight by Hail Mary KO TKO. He would need all the luck in the world on his side, because Susurkaev is so many levels above McConico. He's by far the superior fighter in this contest. He's extremely sharp on the feet. He's got excellent wrestling. He's got dangerous grappling. I'm pretty sure we're looking at Susurkaev inside the distance here. It's just picking when's it going to be. Is it going to be round 1? Is it going to be round 2? I slightly lean towards round 2 for Susurkaev. I feel that Eric McConico, he's going to survive for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe just get past round 1. But that's all it's going to be. That's all it's going to be, man. We're looking at a dustoration. We're looking at Eric McConico surviving, and then bang, off you go to Shadow City, Eric McConico. Off you go. It's a dustoration. It's an inside the distance win for Baisangur Susurkaev. Next matchup, we've got Angela Overkill Hill taking on the Archangel Fatima Kline. Really nice matchmaking again early on this card, guys. Angela Hill's a veteran's veteran. She's not learning anything new at this point. She's now 40 years old. She's not improving. She's right at the end of her career. But I still feel she's a very solid test for any fighter. Now, I bet on Yasmin Lucindo against Angie, and to be honest, it was a very easy win for Yasmin Lucindo. She smacked Angie around the octagon. It was a very easy win. Now, Fatima Kline doesn't possess the same power as Yasmin Lucindo, but man, Fatima Kline is so well-rounded. Her footwork's nice. The technical ability of Fatima Kline, the kicking, the boxing, is so nice. She's a solid wrestler. Amazing grappling skill, amazing jiu-jitsu on the side of Fatima Kline. Now, I expect Fatima Kline to only get better fight by fight. I think she's already super good, but I expect her to only become more of a monster fight by fight. Now, guys, Angela Hill won't be a walk in the park for Fatima Kline. This will be a very good test for Fatima, but I expect it's probably a test she's going to pass, but it won't be a walk in the park. Because Angela Hill, I expect her to look exactly how she usually does. Constantly throwing strikes, a super high output, non-stop walking forward, just doing what Angie typically does. But Fatima Kline, she can control the range. She can catch Angie with some nice kicks, potentially land the bigger and more significant punches, and she's got a decent grappling advantage on her side, training with Erin Nurmagomedov, aka Erin Blanchfield. So I do feel that Fatima Kline should win this fight. It's going to be new generation versus old school. And I'd have to say, you know, the new generation typically wins. Not all the time, but most of the time the new generation does win. And you know what they say? Out with the old and in with the new. So I'm going to side with Fatima Kline, the Archangel, to win on my judges' scorecards against the veteran's veteran, against the fan favourite, against Angela Hill. Next matchup, we've got Chepe Mariscal taking on Pat Sabatini. Excellent matchmaking again early on this card. And Chepe Mariscal is such a chaotic fighter. He's always under pressure, always staying in the face of the opponent. He's not the most athletic. He's not the most technical, but you don't have to be. You just have to be a hard worker, and you need a strong determination to win. And that's exactly what you've got with Chepe Mariscal. He's a relentless pressure fighter. Tough as nails, tough as metal is Chepe Mariscal. Whereas Pat Sabatini, he wants the fight to be clean. He wants the fight to be less chaotic. He doesn't want a gunfight where you have to showcase toughness in order to win. Pat Sabatini is a very high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's super dangerous on the ground, so dangerous with the submissions, but he also has excellent ground control, just amazing grappling skill on the side of Pat Sabatini. And he can easily win rounds in half guard or full guard, or even sit on the back of the opponent for an entire round. He's a super skilled jiu-jitsu player, is Pat Sabatini. However, the chin of Pat Sabatini has always been a liability. He doesn't eat punches well, and that's the main reason why he doesn't want a dogfight. He doesn't want a gunfight. So the styles of these fighters are very different. On one side, we've got a scrappy, relentless pressure fighter that wants all the smoke. On the other side, we've got a fighter that's a very skilled grappler that wants a slower paced fight. He doesn't want a back and forth war. He wants to fight on the ground, and he wants the fight to happen on his terms only. For me personally, guys, I do believe that Chepe Mariscal is a pretty justifiable underdog in this fight. Pat Sabatini isn't going to do well in this fight if he doesn't secure the takedown, whereas Chepe Mariscal can potentially scramble, which makes the takedown quite difficult for Pat Sabatini to actually secure. There's advantages though for both fighters. Sabatini has the better wrestling, he's got the better jiu-jitsu, and he's arguably the smarter fighter. Whereas Chepe Mariscal is definitely tougher, He's relentless. He's very dangerous on the feet. And he's willing to overcome adversity to get his hand raised. But guys, overall, weighing in all those things that I've just mentioned in the breakdown, I kind of side with the plus money underdog, Chepe Mariscal. Like I say, if he scrambles, he's not a fish on the ground. Obviously, he's not the same level as Pat Sabatini in the grappling, in the wrestling. But if he scrambles, if he doesn't accept being taken down, and he's always working, he's always trying to get back to the feet, and eventually he does get back to the feet, or like I say, he scrambles on the takedown to make it hard for Pat Sabatini to secure the takedown. If he can do those things and he brings it back to the feet, then man, Pat Sabatini might be in trouble. He really might. So that's why I'm siding with the plus money underdog. He's only a plus 110, but he's a dog, man. He's a junkyard dog. I really love the style of Chepe Mariscal. Like I say, he's not the most technical. He's not the most athletic. He's not the most technically gifted, but he's a real fighter. He's got that fighting spirit, and I'm really down with that. I'm down with that. So yeah, I side with Chepe Mariscal, the slight underdog. Next matchup, we've got Gerald GM3 Mearshart taking on Kyle Daukaus. It's a good matchup because they're both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. However, I kind of feel it's a bad thing for GM3 because the only thing GM3's ever been good at is Jiu-Jitsu, and his opponent is also very good at Jiu-Jitsu. Guys, I say the same thing pretty much every time when I break down a GM3 matchup. In my opinion, GM3 is just the American version of Paul Craig. He doesn't have good striking. He doesn't have good defense. His chin is super dusty. His footwork is bad. His cardio is bad. And his wrestling isn't even that good. There's so many weaknesses on the side of GM3. But he can pull off that Hail Mary submission, similar to Paul Craig. But can he do that against black belt Kyle Daukaus? And not only a black belt, check what Kyle Daukaus done in his return fight to Michel Pereira. Guys, I had Michel Pereira in a 2-leg parlay, and Kyle Daukaus sent his jaw to Rosette, bro. He sent his jaw to Rosette, and I couldn't believe what I witnessed in that return fight for Kyle Daukaus. He just dusted Michel Pereira like that, man. Come on now. That's a madness. But you have to give a lot of respect and a lot of credit to Kyle Daukaus for that win. He's definitely worked on his boxing quite a lot. You don't just casually KO Michel Pereira early in round 1. Unless you know how to box. So that's going to be a problem for GM3 in this matchup. He doesn't have a grappling advantage, and on the feet, he's at a disadvantage. So all the logic points to a Kyle Daukaus KO TKO, potentially a club and sub. I'm not entirely sure which one. If I had to guess, I'd say Kyle Daukaus KO TKO, but the safe and winning play is probably Kyle Daukaus inside the distance. And guys, I'll say this too. If Kyle Daukaus loses to GM3 after what he'd done to Michel Pereira, that would be absolutely diabolical. The winner should be Kyle Daukaus, man. That's the pick. Next matchup, we've got Malcolm Wellmaker taking on Cody Haddon. And please tell me why the UFC have put together two of my favourite prospects. Why have they got to do that? I love this matchup, but I also hate this matchup. It's a love-hate thing I've got going on with this fight. But I guess that's why we love the UFC so much, guys, because we don't have to wait years and years for high-level matchups like you do over in boxing. Sometimes the prospects have to collide, and that's exactly what we've got with this matchup. So here we have boxer versus boxer. However, Cody Haddon is more than mixed martial artist. Cody Haddon has the wrestling and grappling that could certainly trouble Malcolm Wellmaker, but they're both boxers before anything else. And by the way, they're both phenomenal boxers. You look at Cody Haddon's boxing ability, it's amazing. He's powerful, he's sharp, he's a technical puncher. Hey, Cody Haddon can box like Hatton. Don't get it twisted, Cody Haddon is an amazing boxer, and Wellmaker is also an amazing boxer. His timing, his power, his hand placement is 10 out of 10. He keeps his hands in the perfect boxing position, which makes it easy for him to counterpunch. Or should I say, he makes it look easy. The hands are just under the chin, not over the chin, just under the chin. It's perfect boxing hand placement by Malcolm Wellmaker. His counter hooks are lightning fast. He's so dangerous in round 1. A super fast counter boxer is Wellmaker. And if you get hit on the chin early, it's off to the shadow world you go. It's off to Shadow City. Now, I do think Cody Haddon has the better body work, but you have to remember, guys, when you go to the body of your opponent, you leave your chin open. You don't want to drop your hands nice and early and leave the chin open against Wellmaker. That's not something you want to do. Now, if Cody Haddon survives round 1, which he probably will, or I'm guessing he will, then it becomes a very interesting fight because there's a chance Cody Haddon can get the takedown, force some grappling exchanges, which might slow down Malcolm Wellmaker, take away that explosiveness, wear him down, push him against the fence, make him grapple on the ground. But there's also a chance that Malcolm Wellmaker has an excellent first round, potentially stunning Cody Haddon or dropping Cody Haddon to the ground, which then makes it very difficult for Cody Haddon to execute his game plan past round 1, because now he's rocked. Now he's been concussed. And sometimes when you get rocked early in a fight, it's like now you're just fighting on autopilot. You freeze up, you become gun shy, you become more defensive. We also have to factor in the injury that kept Cody Haddon away from the octagon for just over 12 months. We factor that in because injuries kill momentum. There's no momentum on the side of Cody Haddon, whereas Malcolm Wellmaker has cashed back-to-back performance of the night bonuses. He's got the momentum, he's got the confidence, and he's going to be searching for another round 1 dusteration. Personally though, guys, I think Cody Haddon makes it past round 1, unlike Cameron Simon and Chris Martino. But I think Wellmaker is the sharper boxer, the better puncher, the faster counter puncher. So I expect Wellmaker to still win round 1. But now the question becomes, does Wellmaker have the cardio? Can Wellmaker stay in control of a fight when he doesn't get a round 1 stoppage? Now my prediction is going to be, although Wellmaker isn't the more well-rounded fighter, I think he's the better boxer. He's more dangerous with the hands, and I think he's going to punish Cody Haddon with the boxing for at least 2 rounds. So I'm going to predict Wellmaker to win on the judges' scorecards. There's a chance he puts Cody Haddon away. Of course he can put him away, but I don't think so. I think Wellmaker's going to win on the judges' scorecards. And the last thing I want to say is this. Don't miss Cody Haddon versus Malcolm Wellmaker. This fight here is nothing but pure fireworks. But my prediction is going to be Malcolm Wellmaker to win, to outbox Cody Haddon in at least 2 rounds. Next matchup, we've got Erin Blanchfield taking on Tracy Cortez. And guys, when I first saw this matchup, initially I was thinking Erin Blanchfield, she's winning the fight. My gut instinct said Erin Blanchfield all day, every day. But the more I thought about the matchup, the more I'm actually leaning towards the plus 200 underdog, Tracy Cortez. So let me give you my thought process as to why. Now, Erin Blanchfield has elite super high level grappling. Her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is amazing. Her ground game is basically 10 out of 10. Super strong positional control on the ground, and occasionally she'll get to the crucifix position, which is a super strong position, a fight-ending position on the ground. Her ground game is extremely good. However, her wrestling isn't 10 out of 10 like her grappling. There's been multiple occasions where Erin Blanchfield has kind of struggled to bring the fight to the ground. She failed so many times to bring the fight to the ground against Manon Fior. But then again, Manon Fior is very, very strong. She's very physical. Against Taylor Santos, she failed to bring the fight to the ground a few times, had to settle for wrestling control against the fence. The first 2 rounds against Rose Namajunas in the main event, she kind of struggled to bring the fight to the ground. So there's been multiple times where her wrestling hasn't shown to be that good. Now, obviously, if she brings the fight to the ground, she's an absolute monster on the ground is Erin Blanchfield. As for Blanchfield's stand-up, I think her cardio is very good. She's able to throw a very high output. She's very scrappy on the feet, excellent pressure and excellent output. But her striking isn't actually that good. She's not this technical boxer. She's not this violent Muay Thai striker. On the feet, her striking actually isn't that good. Now, Tracy Cortez does have good wrestling and good grappling. Obviously, Blanchfield has the better jiu-jitsu. She's got the better ground game, the better grappling. But Tracy Cortez, in my opinion, has the better wrestling. So what if Tracy Cortez can defensively wrestle in this fight? What if Tracy Cortez stops Blanchfield from getting her to the ground? Because Tracy Cortez doesn't want to bring Blanchfield to the ground, right? And I know Tracy Cortez usually follows a takedown game plan, but that's not really a path to victory against Erin Blanchfield. You don't want to wrestle Blanchfield to the ground. You don't want to do that. So I'm guessing Cortez will defensively wrestle in this fight. Look for a down block on a Blanchfield takedown. Look for a sprawl on a lazy takedown. Look to defensively wrestle to keep the fight on the feet. And if we get mainly a striking matchup, I'm not saying Tracy Cortez is a high-level striker, because she ain't. But at times in her career, I've seen her throw some very serviceable strikes. I've seen some nice, powerful punches, nice, powerful low kicks. She's got power in her punches and kicks, and she's not reckless or careless when she throws those strikes, whereas Blanchfield can be very hittable going forward. So guys, in a way, I kind of feel that Tracy Cortez does have the skill set to win this fight. She's already won this fight back in 2019. She won against Erin Blanchfield on a split before both women got to the UFC. So I'm going to side with Tracy Cortez at plus 200 to win a split. But guys, I'll say this. If Blanchfield gets a takedown against Tracy and Tracy's defensive wrestling fails, then you know Blanchfield is winning that round or potentially stopping Tracy on the ground. All Blanchfield has to do to cover a minus 250 price tag is bring the fight to the ground. Just get the takedown and it's an easy win. For Tracy Cortez, just stop the takedown. So the result of this matchup potentially comes down to either Tracy Cortez defends those takedowns and gives herself a good chance on the feet, or Erin Blanchfield is going to get the takedown and she's massively covering the minus 250. It all comes down to wrestling. My prediction though is going to be the plus 200, which wasn't my initial pick, but the more I thought about the matchup, the more I've realised that Tracy Cortez does have the skills to give herself a good chance in this fight. I'm going with Tracy Cortez. Next matchup, we've got Roman Kopylov taking on Gregory Rodriguez, aka Violent Obama. Guys, this is a very high level matchup here, but I simply don't trust Roman Kopylov. I really don't. Technically, he's a very high level fighter, but in the fight game, you need to be willing to overcome adversity, and that's something that Roman Kopylov isn't that good at. Fighting isn't all about who's got the technical advantage or who's sharper. Sometimes fights are decided based on who's willing to swim further in order to get their hand raised. Guys, look at Roman Kopylov against Paulo Costa in his last fight. He looked petrified. He looked scared to get hit by Paulo Costa. He was frozen on the feet. He just didn't have the ability to really stand there and trade with Paulo Costa. He got pushed around the octagon, smacked around the octagon, and it's not that Paulo Costa had this massive technical advantage. It's just the fact that Paulo Costa wanted to win way more than Roman Kopylov. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Gregory Rodriguez has the ability to overcome adversity. He's got the ability to bring himself back into a fight when things aren't going well. And if anyone said to me, give me one example of Gregory Rodriguez losing early in a fight, then fighting his way back into a fight, the perfect example would be Gregory Rodriguez against Chidi Njokuani. Chidi Njokuani literally lands this devastating, violent knee to the forehead of Gregory Rodriguez and basically puts a hole in the middle of his forehead. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, you can just Google Gregory Rodriguez skull injury, and I would advise not Googling it because it's absolutely diabolical. And after that round, he went back into the fight and actually stopped Chidi Njokuani. So yeah, there's a difference here between who's willing to walk further, who's willing to walk through the fire to get their hand raised. And sometimes that's a deciding factor of a contest. Now, can Roman Kopylov sleep Gregory Rodriguez? Absolutely, because Roman Kopylov has very sharp direct striking. He's very direct with his boxing. But Gregory Rodriguez also has the ability to sleep Roman Kopylov, and Rodriguez isn't going to quit unless you put him to sleep. Whereas Roman Kopylov will kind of quit if you just keep walking forward, just keep throwing massive strikes at Roman Kopylov. I have to go with Gregory just based on, you know, understanding that he's better at fighting when things aren't going his way. So if Rodriguez loses round one, he's not going to quit. Whereas Roman Kopylov, if things don't start too good in round one, I can see him kind of quitting. I can't see him working his way back into a fight. But guys, I'll say this. Gregory has awful striking defense. He doesn't move his head. His head movement is non-existent. So it's not like the UFC have given Roman Kopylov a bad stylistic matchup. If Kopylov finds the right moment to strike, he can set down Rodriguez. But my question is, will Roman Kopylov actually fight? Will he actually be willing to trade with Gregory Rodriguez? Because if he trades in the center of the octagon, he can win. Gun to the head, I lean towards the Brazilian, Gregory Rodriguez. Next matchup, we've got Bo Nickal taking on Rodolfo Vieira, super high level wrestling versus super high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, these stylistic matchups aren't so easy to predict because sometimes the wrestler can nullify the grappler with nice wrestling positional control on the ground. But there's also times where the wrestler gets completely destroyed by the Jiu-Jitsu player. And most of the time with these type of matchups, the fight plays out on the feet. Now, Bo Nickal won't want to challenge Rodolfo on the ground, and Rodolfo probably doesn't have the wrestling ability to bring Bo Nickal to the ground. So we're probably going to get a striking matchup where Rodolfo Vieira has way more striking experience than Bo Nickal. However, guys, Rodolfo is now 36 years old, whereas Bo Nickal's only 29 years old. So Bo has more room for progression within his MMA skill set. And I kind of have a feeling that Bo Nickal's going to show up this weekend looking the best he's ever looked. But we do have to acknowledge that Bo Nickal is very inexperienced still. He got humbled by Renier Derrida in his last fight. The way RDR just kept crashing forward into the clinch, landing massive knees to the body, he destroyed Bo Nickal. Now Rodolfo Vieira does have a striking advantage, but he's not got the same striking skills as RDR. He doesn't have those Dutch knees to the body. And I think Bo Nickal actually has a speed advantage in this matchup. If you go back and watch his fight against Val Woodburn, and I know Val Woodburn is very low level, but if you go back and watch that fight, look at how fast Bo is at blitzing into striking range. He moves his feet very fast. So I've got a feeling that Rodolfo is going to look very stationary in this matchup, kind of stuck in the mud on the feet, whereas Bo Nickal is going to look a little bit more agile, a little quicker in the stand-up. Even though he doesn't have a striking advantage, he's got an athleticism advantage, and sometimes when you have that advantage, you do appear to be the better striker, just based on, you know, being able to move quicker around the octagon. But I guess we're going to find out what that loss has done to Bo Nickal. Sometimes when you get humbled the way Bo did, it only makes you a better mixed martial artist, and sometimes it completely destroys your career. For example, Alexander Hernandez, when he lost to Donald Cerrone, he struggled for years after that loss. So that's what's most interesting about this matchup. We're all going to find out in real time what that loss against RDR has done to Bo Nickal. Has it made him a better mixed martial artist? Has he spent more time in the gym working on every aspect of his MMA skill set? Is he hungry to get back to winning ways? Or was that loss the first loss of many dusterations for Bo Nickal? We're all going to find out in real time this weekend. For me personally, guys, I have a feeling that Bo Nickal will look the best he's ever looked. And I lean towards Bo Nickal picking up a nice win on my judges' scorecard. And I wouldn't even be shocked if Bo Nickal rocked or even dropped Rodolfo on the feet, just based on Bo Nickal having the speed advantage. Don't forget, speed kills. But yeah, I'm excited to see the matchup. We've got high-level jiu-jitsu against high-level wrestling, and we're all going to see a striking matchup. But yeah, I do lean towards Bo. Next matchup, we've got Beneil Dariush taking on Benoit Saint Denis, and this is excellent matchmaking to start the main card. Now, both of these fighters are ground fighters. Benny has super high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but he's kind of old now at 36 years old. He got a nice win in his last fight against Renato Moicano, but prior to that performance, he got absolutely dusted by Arman Sarukian. And before losing to Arman prior to that fight, he got detonated by Charles Oliveira. And I kind of feel that Benny is past his prime now. He's still very good, but I feel he's past his prime. Now, as for Benoit Saint Denis, he's a problem. He's a problem, man. He's tough as metal, really bad defensively, but so tough that he can take the punches on the feet. Now, here's what I think happens in this matchup. I think Benny probably wins round one. But then I think Benny probably gets stopped after round one. So if Benny slows down past round one, which he probably will, in that case, I think Benoit Saint Denis, he goes on to find a stoppage. It could be a standing KO TKO. It could be a ground and pound stoppage. It could even be a submission. I lean towards Benoit past round one against a past prime Beneil Dariush. Like I say, guys, Benny's still good, but the Frenchman is so dangerous, man. He's not going to stop with the pressure on the feet. He's like the French Terminator. And I know Dustin Poirier beautifully shut the lights off on Benoit Saint Denis, but I can't see Benny doing that. What I can see though is Benny starting well, winning round one, but then fading after 5 minutes, and Benoit Saint Denis just takes the win. So my pick's going to be Benoit Saint Denis via KO TKO, either in the second or third round. Next matchup, we've got Leon Rocky Edwards taking on Carlos the Nightmare Prates. And guys, listen, yeah? I'm going to need you to lock in right now because we're getting towards the business end of this card. So we've got to lock in. We've got the former champion Leon Edwards on a 2-fight losing streak after performing outrageously bad twice in the main event in the UK. First in Manchester, then in London. And both performances were very similar performances because both opponents were virtually identical. Bilal Muhammad and Sean Brady basically followed the exact same game plan and destroyed Leon Edwards. Now, Leon Edwards gets a very different stylistic matchup here. He's going up against a super dangerous and super violent Muay Thai striker. And Leon's striking is pretty good. He's very calm on the feet. He's got excellent kickboxing technique. But if we compare the striking weapons of Carlos Prates to the striking weapons of Leon Edwards, I think it's fair to say that Carlos Prates is the more violent and more dangerous striker. Now, Carlos Prates currently has 5 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC, and all 5 of his wins are TKO stoppages, which is a scary stat for any opponent to go up against, even the former champion Leon Edwards. Now, I'd like to mention two facts, or in my opinion, they're both facts. The first fact is Leon Edwards has one of the greatest head kick knockouts of all time. And the second fact is Carlos Prates has the kicking advantage in this matchup. So even though Leon Edwards is capable of insane head kick knockouts, Carlos Prates is still the better kicker in this matchup. And I think Carlos has way more ways to find a stoppage here. He's got body kick stoppages, head kick stoppages, knees to the body, jump knees to the chin, spinning elbows, left hooks, overhand rights, and even straight right hands. There's so many weapons that Prates can use to end the fight. And that's ultimately why every win he's got in the UFC is a stoppage. Guys, maybe I'm being harsh here, but I think Leon Edwards is past his prime. His last two performances are awful performances. I know the opponents brought very solid game plans, but I felt zero urgency from Leon Edwards, zero passion in both performances. Whereas Carlos Prates, you just feel so much danger every time he steps foot into the octagon. You also have to factor in the momentum difference here. Carlos Prates is a man on a mission, a man that's climbing the mountain towards gold, whereas Leon Edwards is descending from the peak of the mountain. And the last thing I want to mention is something one of the brothers in the Discord mentioned. Shout out to Cheeto. Cheeto said the other day, if Nate Diaz is rocking Leon Edwards, imagine what Carlos Prates is going to do if he lands clean. And I'd have to agree with that. If Carlos Prates lands clean, it's good night Irene, you know what I'm saying? And I understand Leon is a very solid test for Prates, but you'd really have to favour the Brazilian here. Now, some people might claim Leon can wrestle, Leon can get takedowns, he can follow that type of game plan, but I don't think Leon's going to do that. I think he's going to strike with Carlos round by round and basically lose to the more violent striker. So the pick's going to be Carlos Prates, and I think he's going to win on my judges' scorecards. I think Leon's going to be very defensive on the feet, not wanting to really trade with Carlos, not wanting to get slept, not wanting to get dusted on the feet. I think he's going to be very gun shy, very defensive, and Carlos is basically going to outpoint him round by round to win his first judges' scorecard. The prediction is Carlos Prates. Next matchup, we've got Sean Brady taking on Michael Morales, grappler versus striker. So a pretty easy matchup to break down here. If Sean Brady gets a takedown, more than likely he's keeping Morales on the ground for the rest of the round. So if he gets a takedown very early in a round, that's a nightmare situation for Morales. And if Morales does enough damage in a round and then Brady gets a takedown with like 60 seconds left in a round, then Brady would have to show a lot of urgency on the ground to win back the round. There's also a chance Brady can submit Morales because his jiu-jitsu is so high level, you always have to consider Brady winning via submission. Now, Michael Morales is currently undefeated, a rising prospect, 18-0 as a pro, 6-0 in the UFC. He's an amazing striker. And if Michael Morales manages the distance on the feet well, doesn't allow for Brady to ever get close enough to initiate a takedown, in that case, Morales wins this fight on the feet pretty easily. And that's because Morales has a very significant advantage on the feet, and Brady has a very clear advantage on the ground. It's a classic striker versus grappler matchup. And I'm actually going to side with the slight underdog Michael Morales. There's definitely a chance I'm wrong with this pick because Brady has amazing cardio, amazing wrestling, and typically follows the same game plan fight in, fight out. He's always looking to bring the opponent to the ground. And if he gets Michael Morales to the ground, he's in serious trouble. And that's because Sean Brady is a serious opponent for anyone, and so is Morales. Put it this way, guys, whoever wins this matchup is more than likely getting a title shot. But I'm actually going to side with a slight underdog to manage the range well, keep Brady on the feet, and to kind of pick him apart round by round to win mainly a striking matchup. I'm going with the slight underdog, Michael Morales. Next matchup, we've got two of the very best to ever grace the UFC octagon. We've got Valentina Shevchenko versus Weili Zhang, and Zhang is stepping up to flyweight to challenge Valentina for the title. Where do we even start with a matchup like this? My goodness. So Valentina is one of the best Muay Thai strikers we've ever seen. Her kicks are super high level. Her speed, accuracy and power is super high level. Her understanding of range and her control of range is 10 out of 10. She's one of the best Muay Thai strikers we've ever seen in the UFC. And the best way to win against Valentina is to wrestle her to the ground. If you wrestle Valentina to the ground, you give yourself a pretty good chance of winning. Now, Zhang does have the wrestling, but she also has everything else. The boxing, the kicking, the power. She's a complete fighter is Weili Zhang. And now I'm going to slightly contradict myself. Even though Zhang is a complete fighter, I've always felt that she wins most of her fights based on being able to bully the opponent. She's very physical, she's very powerful, and she always seems to be able to overpower and bully the opponent. And Valentina also bullies her opponents, but I think Valentina is a technical bully, a skillful bully. And maybe I'm being harsh comparing the fighters like that, but that's my perception of both fighters. If you ask me to describe Valentina, I would say she's technically gifted, a technical monster. Whereas if I was describing Zhang, I'd say she is well-rounded, but she's a brute. She's a powerhouse. She's a physical fighter that wants to push the opponent around the octagon. And again, maybe I'm being harsh describing Zhang like that. But in my opinion, the biggest concern Valentina faces in this matchup is the takedown. Is Zhang pushing her around the octagon? Is Zhang pushing her against the fence? Is Zhang wrestling her to the ground? However, if Valentina controls the range well, which I think she probably will, I think she could dominate the striking in this matchup. Valentina's striking, her Muay Thai is just excellent. And I never use the word perfect because perfect is an illusion. But Valentina's striking is very, very close to perfect. Guys, I'll say this. If Zhang wins this matchup without having to take down Valentina, without having to bully Valentina on the ground, without having to physically overpower Valentina, then I'll take back my description of Zhang being this physical bully. I'll take it back. But in my opinion, that's how Zhang wins the matchup. She must follow that plan. If she doesn't follow the physical powerhouse game plan, then in my opinion, she's going to lose to the superior striker, the better technician. I'm Team Valentina Shevchenko. And still the undisputed UFC flyweight champion of the world, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko. Let's go. Hey, I went like half American with that. Let's go though, let's go. The main event, we've got the champion, Della Maddalena versus the former lightweight champion and one of the most dominant UFC fighters of all time, Islam Makhachev. And what a fight we've got. Let's start with some facts. In my opinion, it's a fact that JDM has by far the better boxing in this matchup. If the matchup stays on the feet, JDM is going to easily win the matchup because his boxing is levels and levels and levels above Islam. However, if the fight goes to the ground, it's very likely that Islam wins because his ground game is levels and levels and levels above JDM. Now, guys, I want to speak about something that's quite important. I want to speak about Belal Muhammad's performance against JDM. Now, before that fight, Belal Muhammad said, I'm going to go in there and show JDM Canelo hands. And if you go back and watch that fight, Belal performed very differently from how he usually performs. Now, Belal Muhammad typically puts on these very boring performances where he doesn't take much risk on the feet. He pushes the opponent against the fence, gets the takedown against the opponent. He typically fights like that. However, against JDM, he went in there and boxed. Now, I mentioned that because there's going to be a lot of people this week saying things like JDM won against Belal and Islam fights very similar to Belal. JDM stopped the wrestling attempts of Belal so he can stop the wrestling of Islam. JDM got up off the ground against Belal so he can get up off the ground against Islam. Those are the things people are going to be saying this week. And in my opinion, anyone using that Belal performance, or should I say clown performance that Belal showed against JDM, anyone using that fight as a reference to justify betting on JDM, in my opinion, you're making a massive mistake. Look, I think JDM's great. I think his boxing is extremely high level, but Islam isn't going in there to box. Belal went in there to box. Now, just because Belal tried a couple takedowns here and there in the fight, it doesn't really justify Belal's game plan. His initial game plan was to box, and he got embarrassed on the feet by JDM. Now, like I've said, Islam isn't going in there to box. If JDM can stop the takedown or even get back to the feet, now Islam's going to be forced to strike with JDM. But I'm pretty confident Islam can bring JDM to the ground and completely destroy JDM on the canvas. And that's my honest assessment of the main event. And I know there's people who want to believe that Belal showed up looking like Belal, but that's just not the truth. However, Islam will truly show up looking like Islam Makhachev. He doesn't have to cut a whole lot of weight, which he normally has to cut. And because of that, he might be the strongest he's ever been. And that's a bad thing for JDM, who doesn't have the takedown defense, the grappling, the sambo. He just doesn't have the ground skill to survive. So my prediction is going to be Islam Makhachev to find a Darce choke submission either round 2 or round 3. I'm team Islam Makhachev on this one. And new UFC undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Islam Makhachev. Hey, I've got to stop doing that. And guys, don't forget to let me know who you think wins in both title fights, the main event and the co-main event. And as always, my homies, keep your eyes to the sky, never glued to your shoes. Peace.